The Minecraft movie gave us builders, fighters, and a few characters who probably shouldn't have been allowed near a crafting table. Some had the brains to survive the wildest pixel-based chaos. Others made decisions so bad they should have come with a warning label. So today, we're ranking every major character from the dumbest to the smartest, based on their choices, instincts, and ability to not get turned into pork chops. Let's start at the very bottom, someone who got crushed before he could even say a full sentence. General Chungus was introduced as the most powerful warrior in Malgoya's army. He was big, he was armored, he had the voice and the dramatic entrance. Everyone expected him to be a real threat, but then he stepped onto the battlefield and got crushed by his own team's secret weapon, the Great Pig, instantly. Let that sink in. The strongest soldier in the Nether got flattened by a creature on his side before he could even throw a punch. He walked into the overworld with no plan, no backup, and a shiny nether wart that was supposed to protect him from zombification. It didn't. His entire mission was to retrieve the orb, but he didn't lead, strategize, or do anything that showed even basic thinking. General Chungus looked like a boss, but when it came to brains, he was just another mob waiting to be taken out. Next up, we've got a group of people who weren't soldiers, but somehow made an even dumber move. Let's talk about the auction staff. The auction staff had very little screen time, but with that little time, they basically did more damage than anyone. They had one job, run a clean sale, and maybe not hand over a dangerous interdimensional artifact to the first guy who shows up with $900 and no clue. But that's exactly what they did. When Garrett shows up at their auction, broke and desperate, they offer him a mysterious box that's probably valuable. No one checks what's inside, no one asks why it's glowing, no one even questions why the cube comes with a warning manual that says in bold letters, do not combine this with anything ever. Instead, they sell it to him with a payment plan for an object that can open portals between worlds. Even when Garrett slams the box shut and complains that it's empty, the staff just let him walk out. No concern, no questions, just thanks for your money, come again. The auction staff aren't evil, but their lack of curiosity, awareness, and basic responsibility makes them one of the dumbest groups in the movie. They're the reason this whole adventure starts in the first place, and they don't even know it. But at least they were just clueless. The next character looked like she held ancient knowledge and ended up doing absolutely nothing. Let's talk about the pink sheep. The pink sheep entered the movie like it was something special. It had that rare Minecraft color, slow dramatic camera shots, and everyone treated it like a big deal. Garrett begged it for quests. Steve paused when it showed up.
Hola.
That thing doesn't understand a word you're saying.
We're talking.
You'd think it was some kind of mystical guardian, but here's the truth. The pink sheep did nothing. Literally nothing. It stood there. It stared. It occasionally blinked. Its biggest moment? Backing away when Dennis the wolf howled. That's not wisdom. That's animal instinct. And when the mobs attacked, it got captured without a fight. Despite all the buildup, the pink sheep never led the group, gave a warning, or offered anything useful. It wasn't a guide. It wasn't a protector. It was just pretty. And somehow, everyone acted like it was the chosen one. The pink sheep is a perfect example of style over substance. All eyes were on it, but there was no reason to look in the first place. But now let's move from silent fluff to someone who actually talked and somehow made things worse every time. Next up, the school principal. The school principal had a position of authority and zero clue what to do with it. Her first conversation with Henry wasn't about welcoming him or checking in on his emotional well-being. No, it was about her failing marriage and how she only stayed in it for the sake of her dogs. Absolutely no filter. Later, she hands Henry a name tag, barely watches over the students, and disappears until she reappears behind the wheel of a car, where she promptly hits a villager. Yes, she hits a Minecraft villager with her real-world Jeep. And what's her reaction? Panic? Shock? Nope. She tries to flirt her way out of it. This woman crashes into an innocent interdimensional being and responds with, "You seem reasonable," while inviting him to dinner. That's her crisis plan. By the end of the movie, she's somehow engaged to the same villager, in a post-credits scene that nobody saw coming and even fewer wanted. The school principal isn't a villain. She's not even annoying. She's just totally out of her depth. In a movie full of explosions and world-saving, she's comic relief that forgot to be funny. But while she was busy oversharing and underreacting, the next one was even worse because he was lazy, loud, and somehow still doing less than everyone else. Let's talk about Nitwit the villager. Nitwit is exactly what his name says he is. A Minecraft villager who doesn't work, doesn't trade, and doesn't contribute. In the game, he just wanders around aimlessly. In the movie, same deal. He follows the portal from the overworld to Earth without a plan, without permission, and without a single useful skill. Then he gets hit by a car. Yes, that car. The one the principal was driving. And instead of being concerned or confused, he immediately settles into his new life like nothing happened. His biggest move? Getting a free dinner and somehow ending up in a full-blown romantic subplot with the principal. That's it. No strategy, no purpose, just standing around and letting the story drag him like a minecart with no rails. Nitwit doesn't help the heroes. He doesn't fight. He doesn't even talk. And yet somehow, he walks away from all the chaos with a happy ending. It's not impressive. It's just luck. And in a movie packed with builders, fighters, and survivors, Nitwit is living proof that doing nothing sometimes gets you everything, for no reason at all. But at least Nitwit didn't actively destroy anything. The next character? He was basically a walking disaster. Here comes the Great Pig. The Great Pig was introduced as Malgosha's ultimate weapon, giant, angry, and freshly implanted with a brain, a brute force solution to a problem she couldn't solve with magic or threats. The moment it wakes up, it crushes General Chungus in a fit of rage and charges straight into battle like a wrecking ball on four legs. Sounds terrifying, right? Well, yes and no. The Great Pig is definitely strong. It's the biggest threat in the movie, physically. But when it comes to actual thinking, zero signs of it. It doesn't strategize, communicate, or even recognize allies. It just charges at whatever's in front of it and causes destruction, even if that includes its own side. Even in the final battle, it's all brute strength. No control, no planning, just chaos. It loses because it gets outmaneuvered by people with better tools and, more importantly, actual brains. The Great Pig is like a creeper with muscles. Scary if you're standing too close, but ultimately not that smart once you step back and look at the bigger picture. But while the Great Pig was all brawn and no brain, the next person on this list had some brains. He just never used them at the right time. Let's talk about early Garrett. Garrett, also known as the Garbage Man, starts off as the human version of a walking mess. Once a famous video game star, now broke and bitter, he spends most of his early scenes chasing shortcuts and quick wins. When Henry offers him pizza in exchange for advice, Garrett literally tries to charge him $50 an hour. Classy. He stumbles into the story not because he's clever, but because he's desperate. He buys the mysterious cube at an auction without understanding what it is, slams the box shut thinking it's empty, and ignores the giant all-caps warning telling him not to mess with it. And of course, he messes with it immediately. Once they get to the overworld, he begs a pink sheep for missions, hides during battles, and nearly gets everyone killed because of his obsession with finding diamonds. He builds a barely functioning weapon, uses the only ender pearl without asking, and generally acts like a kid in a game he never read the rules for. Early Garrett means well, sort of, but his actions are selfish, reckless, and mostly fueled by pride. He's not the dumbest in the movie, but in the first half, he's trying really hard to be. The good news? Garrett changes. But before we get to that redemption, we have to talk about someone who never really changed and definitely didn't improve anything. Next up is Malgosha. Malgosha is the big villain of the movie, ruler of the Nether, enemy of creativity, and full-time grudge holder. She had a sad backstory about being laughed at for wanting to dance, but it doesn't change how badly she handles everything. She crushes her own general, sends out a monster with no control, and steals the orb without earning it. No big plan, no clever moves, just magic and tantrums. And in the end, she loses in a fight she started and fails 3 times to stab Steve. Malgosha wanted to rule the world, but she couldn't even manage her own team. Next up is someone who definitely wasn't a genius at the start, but slowly started figuring things out. Let's talk about Natalie. Natalie enters the movie as Henry's older sister and legal guardian, a young adult juggling grief, rent, and her brother's first day at a new school. She's trying her best, but at first, she seems out of place in a Minecraft-level crisis. She's not a fighter, not a builder, and definitely not ready for portals. At the beginning, Natalie's focus is purely real-world survival. Cook breakfast, make rent, and get her brother settled. When Henry disappears, she panics, but she does the smart thing. She calls for help. And once she gets pulled into the overworld, she doesn't freeze up. She adapts. She doesn't try to be the hero. Instead, she protects, she listens, and she learns. Her best moment comes when she faces down mobs alongside the others and refuses to back down, even when things get dangerous. By the final act, she's fighting, strategizing, and holding her own alongside people way more used to chaos. Natalie doesn't have tech skills or magic powers, but she's grounded, calm, and grows into a real leader. She starts unsure and ends irreplaceable. But while Natalie was slowly learning to stand her ground, the next character came into the story already carrying some serious emotional weight and just enough brains to make us root for him. Let's talk about Henry. Henry is the emotional heart of the movie and easily one of its smartest characters, especially for his age. At first, he's quiet, withdrawn, and dealing with way too much: a new city, a dead parent, and a school that feels more like a bad dream. But once he's pulled into the world of Minecraft, something shifts. He doesn't just survive, he adapts, fast. In the middle of a monster ambush, it's Henry who starts building defenses with blocks while the adults panic or run. He doesn't have weapons, strength, or experience, but he understands how this world works and uses that to his advantage. Later on, he sneaks into a heavily guarded mansion, defeats a full-blown Enderman, and claims a teleportation sphere like it's no big deal. But Henry's real intelligence isn't just about tactics, it's emotional. He knows when to call out Garrett, when to step up, and when to hold back. His line, "Yeah, I'm a kid, but you're not alone. I'm your friend," completely shifts Garrett's entire arc. Henry is the youngest of the main group, but he never feels like dead weight. He's observant, quick thinking, and quietly brave. In a world full of chaos, he's one of the few who stays focused on what matters. Next up is someone who didn't just adapt to the overworld, she owned it. Let's talk about one of the movie's most unexpectedly awesome heroes, Dawn. Dawn starts off as a friendly real estate agent with a warm smile and great vibes, but by the end of the movie, she's a full-blown warrior, leading a pack of wolves into battle like she's been training for this her whole life. And somehow, the transition makes perfect sense. She's the one who helps Natalie find Henry early on using a tracking app, which already shows she's more resourceful than she lets on. But once they get pulled into the overworld, Dawn doesn't panic. She adapts with style. While others are still figuring out how to hold a sword, Dawn is out there earning the trust of Dennis, Steve's legendary wolf, using nothing but a bone and pure courage. Her best moment? No question. It's when she shows up during the final battle standing on a hilltop surrounded by wolves and lets out a whistle that kicks off a full-scale animal ambush on the Great Pig. She doesn't hesitate. She doesn't wait for orders. She just leads. But while Dawn led with heart, the next character started off as a joke and somehow ended up as a hero. Let's talk about late-stage Garrett. By the end of the movie, Garrett is a completely different person from the guy we met at the start. Early on, he was all ego, shortcuts, and bad decisions. But somewhere between dodging creepers, losing the diamonds, and bonding with Henry, he woke up and turned into a real hero. His growth starts when Henry calls him out. Instead of brushing it off with sarcasm, Garrett listens. And from that point on, he stops thinking like the trash man and starts acting like someone who's part of a team. He trains, he builds, he fights, and in one of the movie's boldest moments, he sacrifices himself in a last-ditch explosion to stop Malgosha. But he doesn't die. He survives, barely. And when he comes back during the final battle, it's not for glory. It's to protect Henry. Garrett rushes into danger, saves the kid, and helps turn the tide of the entire fight. From selfish to selfless, from comic relief to actual warrior, his arc feels earned. Even after the battle, he doesn't just go back to being famous. He builds something real, a new life, a better self, and a gaming empire with his friends by his side. Garrett didn't start smart, but he learned, and that puts him ahead of almost everyone else. Next up is someone who didn't need a redemption arc because he was already operating on a whole other level from the very beginning. Let's talk about Steve. Steve is the soul of the movie and the brains behind some of its biggest wins. From the moment he picks up that pickaxe and walks into the mine, he's not just chasing a dream, he's chasing purpose. And once he finds the creation cube, he becomes the architect of everything that follows. He doesn't waste time asking for help or waiting for permission. He builds houses out of pink sheep wool. He tames a wild wolf with a bone. He hides the most powerful artifact in existence under his waterbed. And later, when the world starts falling apart, he becomes the anchor the entire group leans on. Steve isn't just smart because he knows Minecraft logic. He's smart because he knows people. He senses when Garrett needs pushing, when Henry needs space, and when Malgosha needs to be walked away from, not fought. Even in full diamond armor with a sword in hand and a world to save, he still chooses mercy. His inventory is stacked, his battle skills are sharp, and his instincts are always dead on. But the real reason Steve stands out? He doesn't want to be the hero. He just wants to build a better world, and he never stops trying. And that was the full list, from the dumbest blockheads to the sharpest minds in the overworld. If you want to see more content like this, click the video on the screen now.